Tariq Woolen's making noise, but he's not the only Seahawks rookie. We got to get into that. Plus, what to look at this weekend for your matchups that will tell you about the prospects in the 2023 draft. We're going to get into it with Rob Rang today on Locked On NFL Draft.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Show. I'm your host, former NFL and AFL defensive back, Eric Crocker. And of course, as always, you can find me on Twitter at Eric_Crocker. Of course, I'm not the only guy up here. We got Ryan Tracy from Rogue Analytics and Locked On Chiefs and Rob Rang as well, covering the Seahawks for the network. We want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. And also let you know that today's episode is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Pick projections, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with using the promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com. Promo code Locked On. All right, guys. So Rob Rang, he's diving into his Fox Sports articles right now, and you talked about this rookie, right? That you're writing this upcoming article on, Tariq Woolen, the guy out of UTSA, very intriguing prospect coming out of college, converted over from cornerback, where he originally was a receiver, then moved to cornerback, 6'4", 205 pounds. Probably the most freakish athlete at the combine, running in the 4.2s. I mean, just unheard of athleticism. How has that athleticism transferred over to the actual game field?
All right. Well, with Tariq Woolen, I mean, you're absolutely right, Croc. I mean, I see a guy that is as raw as it gets. I mean, he only played 18 career games, the cornerback position at UTSA. Obviously goes to the Senior Bowl. We were all there. But at the same time, he is raw. To see a player who was drafted in the 5th round behind the Thorpe Award winner, Kobe Bryant, who was selected a round earlier, and yet it's Tariq Woolen who gets the start. You have Russell Wilson coming back to Seattle. You would think that he would want to target the rookie cornerback, and yet he did not. It was almost kind of inexplicable that the Denver Broncos did not target Tariq Woolen at all. And what that says to me is that they watched the preseason tape, and Woolen was absolutely spectacular throughout the preseason. I mean, he was covering receivers, shaped anything from 5'8", 175-pound kind of guys to the 6'3", 6'4", 200-pound blazers down the field. And he matched up against Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, and he did have 2 pass interference calls. I certainly don't want to just ignore that. 2 important pass interference calls that put Denver in position to score in the red zone. But at the same time, Russell Wilson, as good as he is, never completed a single throw against Tariq Woolen in coverage. You saw a greater deal of physicality than I ever saw from Woolen at UTSA. And again, I saw the length, I saw the speed, I saw the awareness of the ball. He had a pass breakup in the end zone. There's a lot of really exciting things about Tariq Woolen, and not the least of which is the fact that the Seahawks have brought Richard Sherman back into the fold a little bit. He's kind of coaching on the side a little bit, giving his opinion. And there's a lot of people out there who are comparing Sherman, a former wide receiver selected in the 5th round by the Seahawks, to Woolen. And Woolen is not as physical as Sherman became. But at the same time, for game 1 of his rookie season, it definitely was a really exciting debut.
From I watched that game live, but I did see it on replay. For me, it's about that transition. He's got all the physical tools, the speed, and certainly the length. He looks like a guy who's taken that first step towards, okay, I'm actually going to unleash what I have rather than just trying to play the game. It looks like it's more confidence to me. And maybe that's from Sherman, maybe that's from the coaching staff, but do you see that too? Or do you feel like he's just scratching the surface really here?
I think a little bit of both. I think that he is scratching the surface. I think that his upside is just through the roof. But at the same time, I think that also he was playing a little bit tentatively. and that he is going to get better. And speaking of playing tentatively, that's where I thought that Kobe Bryant played a little bit as for the Seahawks. Of course, he was the defensive back that was beaten for the long touchdown, Russell Wilson's only touchdown in that game. Jerry Jeudy got him. Kobe Bryant kind of lost track of the ball, turned, didn't locate quickly enough. Jeudy makes the catch and pulls away. But I think it's also interesting that the safety that was cheating over to try to protect over the top was Josh Jones, who came in right after Jamal Adams suffered a really significant injury. And so, hey, kudos to the Broncos for recognizing that they had an injury at the safety position, and so to attack that. But to me, it was so interesting to see literally the Thorpe Award winner, a guy that we've all kind of championed as being as pro-ready as it gets. And Kobe Bryant was absolutely spectacular throughout training camp, but Tariq Woolen was just that much better. And I was not expecting to say that. I was thinking that Woolen might take a year before he'd actually get himself on the field, just because I thought that he would be such a liability in run support. And instead, Woolen's really hit the ground running. And it feels like Seattle has an absolute superstar at that cornerback position. And then Kobe Bryant is going to be a really good one as well. I expect both of them to wind up playing a lot of time against the 49ers this upcoming week. I expect Woolen to start, Kobe Bryant probably to quote unquote start at that nickel cornerback spot.
Yeah, I'm looking for usage as well. I'll be very interested to see how that evolves through this, like maybe first quarter, first half of the season. There's a lot there. There's a lot in college football as well. We have to get into what we're going to watch. How about you Sooners and Cornhuskers? I know you guys have some stuff coming at you. Into that right after this.
I know a lot of us travel, and a lot of times when you go to travel, you want to use a car, you want to rent a car, you go to Hertz, you go to Enterprise. Sometimes they don't have the car that you need available, or they want to charge you through the roof. Well, that's where Turo comes in, and then right now, Turo is the world's largest sharing marketplace for vehicles. With Turo, you can book any car that you want, whenever you want it, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. All right, so browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget that you have across the U.S., Canada, and the UK as well. Book a spacious SUV or a minivan for a family road trip. Get a classic or luxury car for a special event. You want to surprise that special person. Maybe it's their birthday. Maybe it's a holiday. All right, you're going to find the affordable economy car if you are on a budget and you just need to get from point A to point B. Maybe you have to drive from Stockton, California to Los Angeles, California, 5 hours. You want it to be good on gas out there in California. Turo is the place for you. You get to test drive all these new cars, whether it's electric vehicle, and try to figure out, is this a car that might fit your lifestyle? Something that you might want to invest in? Turo is the spot for you for that as well. Many Turo hosts, they can even deliver the car right to you. So you don't have to leave your house. You don't have to leave your hotel. They bring the car to you. And every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms and conditions and exclusions do apply. Ditch that boring rental car and find your drive at Turo.com.
All right, we have plenty of college action, Rob. Is there one game that stands out to you most in what we need to look at this coming weekend?
Well, I think just given the news here recently with Nebraska letting Scott Frost go, I think that we have to look at Oklahoma and Nebraska, just kind of seeing what is about to happen. You have so many transfers with these two programs. Dylan Gabriel, of course, former UCF quarterback, is now Oklahoma. Ochaun Mathis is a player, the edge rusher formerly at TCU. I'm really interested to see what he is going to be able to offer Nebraska, especially in this type of a game. This is an opportunity for Nebraska to get right very, very quickly, and Mathis has that type of burst up field to be able to offer that. But I think if we're going to talk about that game, I think that you have to mention Marvin Mims. I mean, what he was able to do a week ago, I think it was 7 catches, 160 plus yards, 2 scores. When you look at him, he's 5'10 and a half, 177 pounds. He's going to get all kinds of comparisons to former Oklahoma wide receiver Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, obviously now with the Arizona Cardinals, and another former OU quarterback, of course, the Kyler Murray. And I think it's easy to kind of fall into that trap of just saying that Mims is the next Brown. But when I watched him on tape, I see a guy who's a little bit more physical than you might expect. I really like his hand-eye coordination, his body control, going up and high pointing passes. Again, at that size, that's not exactly what you're expecting. A little bit more physical than I thought. I like the matchup against Nebraska. I think if Oklahoma is going to, try to come in and they're going to try and silence the crowd, they're going to try to make some big plays early on. We talked about this a moment ago with Seattle against Denver. That was one of the things that Seattle was able to do, is get the home crowd excited by getting, a fortunate touchdown right off the bat. I think that's what Oklahoma's going to try to do. They're going to try to hit Mims early on in this game to try and pad his statistics and obviously try and quiet that Nebraska crowd. And so Marvin Mims, I think, is absolutely a player that NFL fans and NFL scouts are definitely going to be watching closely in this ballgame.
Yeah, I think they have to. And I don't know how much of an opportunity he's going to get to play against Quentin Newsom, but I think he's the guy in the Nebraska secondary that you want to get a look at if you're an evaluator in the league right now. And honestly, if you're a fan, it started off a little bit slow, but he's come on. He's got a 3 PBUs on the season here. He's doing really well at completion percentage rate. I don't know if they're going to match him up that much because he is an outside corner only at this point. I think he's got like 4 snaps in the slot. So it's not a 1-for-1, but he's a guy to watch. I think we both want to see the edge rusher. Have you had a look at Mathis yet? And what are you hoping to see from him now that he's at Nebraska?
I have had a chance to watch Mathis, and I love that you mentioned, about the fact that we just haven't seen, Nebraska cornerback inside much. Because again, with Mims, the fact that he has played as much as he has at that slot position, again, it's not a guy that you would expect to play that role, to be as physical as he is, playing over the middle, making some catches in the middle of the field, taking some big hits. That is a surprise to me, and I think that's something that Oklahoma is going to try and take advantage of. But going back to Mathis, a lot of people remember this guy as at TCU a couple of years ago. I mean, he was 12 and a half tackles for loss, 8 sacks, I believe. Really dropped down a year ago, but I thought that was more on TCU, frankly, than it was on Mathis. I saw him doing a lot of kind of read and react kind of stuff rather than just pin your ears and attack the quarterback. That's what I think Nebraska is likely to do a little bit with Mathis. He's 6'5", he's 260 pounds. You see flashes of that quick twitch. He can change directions. He does a really nice job of mirroring or pairing his hands and his lower body to kind of dip and rip underneath the pass blockers. I really think this is an interesting matchup for him. To me, of all the games on the rest of Nebraska's schedule, if he can have a splashy performance here, that's the kind of game that you need to really be able to move your stock up in the eyes of NFL scouts.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. What I've seen from him so far that kind of stands out to me from TCU, maybe it was the readability that he was asked to do. But I see a guy that holds the point a little bit better than what I saw at TCU. I see a guy that is using his length to that much more of an advantage. I won't say it's a great difference, but he feels more comfortable. And I know he's played a lot of snaps in college football. So for him to hit that maturation point, maybe this is the thing. But I need to see him dominate. I need to see him get to the quarterback and actually exert his will. And that's what I haven't seen from him yet. Have you?
I have not, but it actually kind of reminds me a little bit of Sam Williams, of course, who was at Mississippi a year ago. Now it's the Dallas Cowboys. And, we saw him just explode throughout the workout process. And he put up some incredible numbers at Ole Miss at times, but then disappeared at times. There were moments where it looked like he couldn't find a football in a sporting goods store. And that's what I kind of wonder with Ochaun Mathis a little bit, is if you can be a great athlete and yet not be a very instinctive football player, of course. And that's what I wonder about with Mathis. But if he is able to kind of put it all together in a game like this, I certainly expect him to be able to put it all together, during the workouts, again, a la Sam Williams, who wound up being a 2nd-round pick of the Dallas Cowboys. That's where I think that Mathis could wind up becoming. This is not the edge rusher class that we saw a year ago. I do think we're going to see some of these edge rushers start to kind of work their way up the draft board. Again, this is as good of an opportunity, probably prior to an opportunity in Mobile or Las Vegas in one of those all-star games, that Mathis is going to get this season.
I'm glad that you bring that up because the edge class is, I think, much more wide open. And there's a lot of guys starting to make a little bit of noise. We're going to talk about one of them coming up. There are other games besides Sooners versus Huskers. I know you guys don't believe that, but we're going to get to the next ones coming up after.
All right, we want to let you all know that betonline.net is your number one source for all of your pro and college football betting needs and sports information this season. Find all the latest football league developments, game matchup, news, podcasts, including this year's opening week's games. Including opening week games, the 49ers, they lost to the Chicago Bears, right? Well, who's the backup quarterback? Jimmy Garoppolo. Are the 49ers going to keep him on the roster? Are the 49ers going to trade him? Well, actually, you can go to BetOnline right now, and you can actually wager on that. All right, his odds right now to be traded during the regular season, plus 600 for yes, minus 1500 for no. Cooper Rush start every game for the Dallas Cowboys while Dak Prescott is out, plus 200 for yes, minus 300 for no. So there are all kinds of things that you can bet on, and you make sure that you do it at betonline.net. It also is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite sports and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head over right now to the website today to use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action going on at BetOnline, where the game starts.
All right, Rob, one of the more intriguing matchups for me is two guys I think need to kind of take a step forward. One plays in your neck of the woods. One plays way up in the peninsula now, right? Michigan State versus Washington. This is Jackson Kirkland, established. Like I thought he might have even had he had a better season, might have come out last year, right? Against the new guy, Jacoby Windman, who I've been really intrigued with so far. Is that really the premier matchup in that ballgame?
It is for me. I mean, I think you can make a comment about the fact that you have a former All Big Ten quarterback, Michael Penix, is going to get his opportunity for Washington because, of course, they haven't exactly played the most impressive competition to this point. And you have a top 15 club in the Spartans coming into Seattle, and Seattle has struggled. The University of Washington has struggled here the last several years. I think it's 10 plus years now where they've been able to beat a top 15 team, even in the friendly confines of Husky Stadium. So this is being billed as quite the opportunity for the new Husky head coach, Kalen DeBoer. But I love that you mentioned Jackson Kirkland. I mean, this is a guy who his initial quickness, his length, his power, his nastiness, his, he is a possible first-round caliber offensive tackle. This is the type of matchup that he has to be very impressive in. So, I mean, we all remember, at least we certainly do out in the Pacific Northwest, about how much that he struggled, at least initially, against Aiden Hutchinson. And there were some ugly, ugly reps against Michigan. But at the same time, he actually leveled his play out, and the rest of the season was pretty darn good until the injury a year ago. I mean, he winds up coming back for, it feels like, about his 17th year as the University of Washington starting offensive lineman. He's kind of moved up and down their positional group. I think that he is a pure, legitimate left tackle in the NFL. I have a little bit of concern about his frame. He's really big and impressive on top, but he's kind of got some thinner legs and narrow hips, and so you wonder about his ability to hold that weight. But there's a lot of NFL teams out there who really value guys who can run very fast in the 40-yard dash. We had that conversation, I think, a year ago prior to the draft. And Jackson Kirkland is going to absolutely turn heads when it comes to workouts. And there's no question his power, his physicality, his want to. And again, I think this is a terrific one-on-one matchup, one of the more interesting ones, I think, of the college football weekend.
Yeah, and I think it's an opportunity for Jackson to really highlight, like you said, he's not a guy that's doing RDLs all day long because those legs are not tree trunks. So use them to your effect. Get your feet moving. Like, show me that you have that ability because unlike, even Hutchinson, I will say that Windman, he's going to take that first step, I think, just as quickly. What I've seen from him so far, and I didn't know him until this season began, transfer from UNLV, I didn't see him on film, but he's quick. He's got great pad level dynamics. He can dip and rip and get himself in position. And if your feet are not moving, that might be the thing that changes the scope of this game for Penix, who I think has some room to really make a statement as well. When you get these Big Ten, Pac-10, and I know the worlds are colliding now and these conferences are going to merge in at least some form or fashion. But when you get big schools that have this kind of a matchup, I think it's not just about the one-on-one, but the result of it. And I think that's where Penix can kind of reap some reward there.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. And that's one of the things I think that Jackson Kirkland has kind of going in his favor in this game as opposed to last year, where he wasn't blocking for a quarterback nearly as athletic as Michael Penix. I mean, Penix can absolutely move. He's got plenty of arm, and he also throws with touch as well. I really think that this is, I don't want to sound like a homer because I had not graduated from the University of Washington. They just happen to be, a team that's here close to me locally. But I think that the University of Washington was a little bit overrated last year and obviously got thumped and wound up having just a horrific season. And we know the ramifications of that with the head coach getting replaced, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that they are a little bit underrated. And Michigan State, for all of the talent that they have, you mentioned at least one of their big time transfers in this year. I'm really interested to see these two teams go head to head. There's no doubt about it. Based on tape, Michigan State has been the more physical team, but that's exactly what you want a home underdog to feel, is that they are not as physical. They've got to absolutely bring it. I think that this is going to be a really exciting game. And, 4:30 Pacific time, 7:30 Eastern time on ABC. I think that this is going to be kind of one of those must-see television events for college football because, Washington State kind of shocked a lot of people when they went to Camp Randall a week ago and beat Wisconsin, obviously a top 15 ranked team. The University of Washington is hoping to do the exact same thing. And I think that Michigan State has its warts as well.
There's a couple of other games just real quickly. Like I'm going to try to watch Penn State because I want to see Joey Porter Jr. I'm going to try to watch Oregon because I want to see, can their linebackers actually improve? Because I've been less than enthusiastic about the Oregon inside linebackers so far. Bo Nix bounce back. I want to see more from them. Anything in those matchups or any other matchup that you think we really need to key in and see this weekend?
Well, yeah, I would absolutely agree with you. I want to see Noah Sewell become or be the Noah Sewell that I've seen in the past. I mean, my goodness, I thought that he was terrific on tape in the last couple of years. And then against Georgia, I mean, he was nowhere to be found. Against Eastern Washington this past week, he was all over the field again, and Oregon just, wiped the floor with him. But again, that's an FCS program. You should. So I'm excited to see that matchup as well. To me, one of the other ones that's really interesting, and just again, kind of focusing on Oregon and BYU, there's a lot of guys for both the Ducks as well as BYU Cougars I'm really intrigued by. It's interesting that we were talking about University of Washington because one of the players I'm most excited about for BYU is actually a former Washington guy, the receiver Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua, he's 6'2", he's 205 pounds, and he plays physical. I mean, he's not Deebo Samuel, but he plays with a different level of physicality. When he catches the ball, he is looking to hit defensive backs. And Oregon, of course, has had a lot of transition in their secondary. If he matches, if he's able to play, he was walking around a boot in week 2. I do think that there's a chance that he might be able to play. If he is able to play, the matchup between him and the Oregon cornerback, former Colorado guy, Christian Gonzalez, to me, is a really interesting one because you mentioned Sewell struggling. I think that Christian Gonzalez missed some tackles against Georgia as well. And so I want to see those two go head to head. I think that Gonzalez is the better athlete. I think Nacua is the better, more physical football player. And so those two going head to head, it's kind of like they used to say like great or contrasting styles make great fights. I think it could be a little bit of a fist, of a fisticuffs on the outside at BYU and Oregon if those two players play. And if not, the BYU quarterback, Jaron Hall, is a good football player as well. Talked about Noah Sewell. You better bring your hard hat. Jaron Hall will run down people's throats as well. He's got enough speed to get to the outside, and he's got some nice touch on the deep ball as well. So to me, that BYU-Oregon matchup, maybe I was remiss earlier, and I know there's some really interesting SEC matchups. I'm sure Croc wants to talk Fresno State, USC. There's a lot of history there. But BYU-Oregon, don't sleep on that. I think that's a really interesting ball game.
Glad that you bring that up, folks. Tomorrow, we will be talking Fresno State USC so that Croc can get his shots in. He's very excited about that, and I don't blame him. I hope you guys are excited about these matchups to come, Rob. Thanks for all of your insight and pointing us in the right direction.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Everybody, check out the rest of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen. There's a lot of other shows. We appreciate your time. We'll have more for you getting ready for this weekend's action tomorrow on Locked On NFL Draft.